games begin!
Hello, you're listening to a Heroes Welcome, episode 12. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Wes, and with me, as always, to discuss everything in the world of Overwatch, Andrew. So you got your very first legendary.
Yeah, I finally got my first legendary. When you know it, Zarya, probably one of the people I play the least, or steampunk outfit, of course, too. But I finally got one pretty soon after that, Roadhog, which I play a lot more. I finally got his Mako suit, which is kind of cool for me.
Yeah, the Mako Roadhog, probably my favorite. My most recent one was Diva Junker, which gives me another excuse to play Diva. Can't complain.
Yeah, I mean, Diva's nice. I mean, she's always a fun character to kind of mess around with. I don't play her too much in competitive, just because I don't feel like I'm that I'm good with her as far as carrying and things like that. But yeah, I play an awful lot of Roadhog though. I do feel like playing Roadhog is one of my better tanks that I play. So especially on defense.
Yeah, and we're talking about him tonight, right?
Talking a lot about Roadhog today, so we'll get some little tips and tricks in there for Roadhog. It's one of those characters that if you know how to play him very well, you can definitely carry with him. So love having that hook. Although being on the other side of that hook is kind of vicious. I always feel like when I play against him, the hook seems a lot longer than it really is.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying though. If you're especially solo queuing, you could carry pretty good with the good Roadhog. So we've had competitive out now for about a week and a half or so. You know, some of the major little bugs kind of got fixed a little bit, and there's more improvements to come for sure down the road. But how's your experience been? Well,
as I said before, I started out at about 47. So, I mean, same as where I did when I played in the PTR, right in the same area. But I've kind of been going backwards a little bit. I've got into some pretty poor groups and just playing just pretty downhill at the moment. So last few games have been good, though. I've been on a little bit of a win streak as of lately, so hopefully I can climb my way back up into the higher rankings. So
yeah, from what I hear from other people, it seems like especially in the lower, like sub 50, grouping up with people is very beneficial to kind of break the barrier.
Yeah, I did get into a group. Actually got into a small group earlier on, and we did pretty well, even all the way up to a 6-man group, and we were doing really well then. I mean, I think we won like 6 straight or something like that in a row. We did really well, but yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, like I said, I'll climb my way back up towards the top. Maybe we'll get a chance to play together a little bit later this week.
Yeah, maybe. I've had a pretty positive experience so far. I was gone for 5 days on vacation, but I did get some games in yesterday. I went up to 64. Unfortunately, some familiar faces were in my games, and I'm only 64, but running into people like Internet Hulk, for example, he's only on the best team in the world, right? Envious.
Yeah, it's definitely probably not fun to see those in the games. I mean, I know I haven't seen anybody like that, but I'm sure it was a difficult game going up against some of the better rated players.
Yeah, I mean, it was really fun, though. There was also Milo. He's on Luminosity Gaming. He was in a number of my games. It's kind of cool to see people recognize, and yeah, I don't know. It's like I'm mid-60s going up against guys that are like high 70s, even 80s, 81, 82, 83, so it's kind of weird to see that big, gap there, but it's still kind of early. And
yeah, things are really kind of spread out right now. I think we were looking earlier, and there's just such a small percentage of people at that higher rank in the skill ratings. So there's just a huge difference between people matching up in those higher ratings. I don't typically see that. In my lower ratings that I'm in right now, everything's really close together, unless we're grouping up, of course, and then things are kind of all over the place. But where I'm at near the 40s, 50s is where it's it's pretty close together. So at least it's working out there as intended.
Yeah, the games are really good, really solid. Even though there's like a 20-point differentiation sometimes, they seem pretty well balanced. The quality is really good, and it's fun. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, I've been having a lot of fun playing it. Hopefully, like I said, I'll get a positive win rate going here pretty soon. be cool to get into a good group and just bring my way back up. I haven't had a chance to get into a group lately, but I think it's gonna work out a little bit better off that way. So
yeah, another thing I noticed is a lot of people I talk to in real life that I know, they have a very positive experience with the game, but it's hard to go in the forums and the Reddits and stuff, and people just trashing this. This sucks. But I'm convinced it's kind of like the little squeaky wheels that go on there. They get a lot of attention.
Yeah,
but the masses, I think they're pretty happy. I mean, nothing's game breaking. People are having fun playing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of just the nature of the internet personally, and especially forum boards. I mean, people go there to complain. People that are having a great time and having fun with the game, they're busy playing the game and having fun, whereas, the other people are on there complaining about what needs to be fixed because they're losing and because they're not having fun, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I mean, you kind of have to know that going into it. It's just like anything else when you're reading the internet. You take everything with a little bit of grain of salt.
Right, so let's get into the show. We're talking about a lot of different things, right? We have news, a little bit of we had to patch since our last recording.
Yeah, so I mean, we have a lot of little stuff to talk about in the news. We got some competitive going on, and then later on in the show, we're going to be covering Roadhog. So stick around for that for sure. First off, talking about the news this week, Jeff Kaplan specifically addressing the overtime of regulation. Specifically, just the stalling was the main thing. So a lot of people are having issue with the fact that overtime is really expanding so far beyond even sometimes the match length itself. So I don't know if you want to kind of talk a little bit about their changes, what they're looking into doing there.
Right, so Kaplan just came on. He was just chatting about how they are currently working for a fix for the stalling regulation. So pretty much the ability to stall out games in overtime a lot. There is no hero limits currently in the game whatsoever. So, lots of divas and tracers, especially on King of the Hill maps, the games could be, 2, 3, 4 minutes longer than they ought to be. So he did come out and said that they're working on changes. In the next patch, we should see some changes. And as usual, he says this, even before the game came out in the beta a lot, that, they change typically one variable at a time to see how that affects everything rather than making a bunch of changes at once. So hopefully the next change we'll see kind of, addresses the stalling regulation, and if not, he already, said that, there might be some more changes after that.
Right, so I mean, it's just one of the things that they've been really adamant about is just making sure that they don't want to change too much at one time and kind of break things. So they've been doing a great job so far. They've been listening to feedback, awesome amount of feedback and results from that. So yeah, they're gonna try and make a little bit of a change and hopefully reel in some of the stalling and prevent that from extending too far into the match. And then they're going to kind of take a overview and see what the result of that is. And then possibly they'll make another round of changing if that doesn't reel it in enough. So next up, we want to kind of cover the lever changes that they made. So these changes are already currently in the game. As of a few days ago, they've made some changes to how the levers actually affect the skill rating changes after the match. And we're specifically talking about competitive play here and how the skill rating is changed. So previously, if you didn't know, after a person left the game actually recalculates the team's probability of winning at that point, and then that actually affects your skill rating changes after the game. So if you're in a game previously and a person left, then that affects, obviously, if they're leaving on your team, then you'll probably be less affected by the results of the game. And if somebody left on the other side, then you're probably more affected by the things that change after that. So I don't know if you want to kind of give them an idea of what's happening now, how they're changing things.
Well, the main problem is when someone leaves the match, they're not getting the necessary points, the skill rating change, like you said. Has that happened to you? Have you experienced that?
Yeah, I have had quite a few levers actually in recent memory, of course. I've had several on my team and several on the enemy team. So basically what's happening is people are actually leaving specifically near the end of the match because they know they're going to lose. And so they're trying to get out of the game quicker, and it's actually affecting the winning team because then the winning team is actually gaining less for that win because somebody left on the other team. So they kind of want to make that change as well. So now the way they're working it is it's never going to change and recalculate. So basically, even after a person leaves the game, initially when the game is loaded up, there's a probability calculated of both teams and what their percentage is of winning, and that affects the ultimate change of the skill rating at the end of the game. So levers will not be able to affect the outcome of the skill rating changes whatsoever, and so they're kind of doing that after a lot of feedback from people basically saying that, it felt bad for the remaining players to win less and lose more in those situations. And also it just incentivizes really bad leaver behavior. So they really kind of made that change because of the feedback they felt. So.
Right, and it just felt bad when people left and you won the game and you wouldn't get as much points. And yeah, it feels bad, man.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've had, like I said, a couple of those happen as well. So I like to change. I mean, obviously, lever penalty, we want that to be stronger. We want it to affect the lever, and so that we don't have levers at all. But in the meantime, we want to make sure that it's not affecting the players that are still left playing the game.
Yeah, and I have seen a couple people say that they're still seeing this problem. I don't know, if that's a lot of people experiencing that, or maybe they just don't understand, but...
Yeah, I haven't experienced it. I know a couple of them posted on the forums as well that they had the experience, and they were saying that it was a bug that was causing it to not go into effect. So hopefully we'll see that fixed really soon here, and hopefully not too many people are affected by that.
Yeah, we talked in the past about kind of how the rank system works and how, it calculates how much points you're going to get, how much you can go up or down based on losing. So we got a little bit more of insight kind of, with this being addressed, right? So before the game begins, there's, a certain calculation to determine, okay, this team, is more probable to win. So if they win, they probably won't get as much points, but the underdogs, you see that often, it says underdog, they have more opportunity to make up more points potentially.
Yeah, and I really like that they do that. I've noticed that from the very beginning, the very first time I noticed that, I was like, oh, that's really kind of cool that they added that little, they actually spell that out, who's the underdog in the team, so okay, well, if we're the underdogs, let's try hard to win this match, we can get a lot of points.
Yeah, I have noticed they don't actually consider groups, because I could be in a full, solo queue, I could be going up against like 2 duo queues, but, they're still the underdog, which is interesting, but it's just based off your skill rating average of the team. And some people I've talked to actually haven't realized this, but when you queue up on the loading screen of the competitive, there is these bars that tell you who's grouped up with who. Some people I talked to didn't realize that. But yeah, you can see who's grouped up with who in that loading screen right there.
Exactly. So yeah, it doesn't show it obvious enough when you actually tab into your hero preview or any of that. But at the very start, when it lists the rosters of the teams in the loading screen, that's when you see those.
Right. So let's talk about the patch I hit on the 6th. A lot of it. Pretty much the gist of it. We don't got to break down every single second of every change, but the sudden death duration were changed, right? So when you had a little flip of the coin and one team assault, would assault the payload, for example, would defend. So the amount of time allocated for that objective has changed per map. So before it just used to be 1 minute 45 seconds, right? For every single map, didn't matter if it was escort, assault, or hybrid or anything. But now they've actually individually tuned every map specifically. One it might be 1 minute and 30 seconds. It might be 1 minute and 50 seconds, for example.
Right. So just another result of them actually really fine tuning things, because even before the 1 minute 45 was actually originally 2 minutes, and then they had a quick patch and they changed it down to 1 minute 45. And really what they're trying to do here is narrow down exactly the amount of time they think is necessary to assault the point and give the attacking team enough time to assault the point and complete it and actually have a chance, but not giving them too much of time where the defense is just overwhelmed with 2 minutes they have to try and fight off the attacker team, because we do know still, even the way things are set up, that attacking is really favored a little bit slightly on these situations. So just trying to minimize the damage of the actual coin flip and still trying to make it fair. So the only thing to note is that Hollywood is really the only one that's left unchanged at 1 minute 45 seconds, and Nimbani is the only one that's actually longer at 1 minute and 50 seconds. So those are the ones to watch out for. But just cool to see that they've made these little changes here and there.
Yeah, it's important to point out as well that this is probably going away entirely with the next fall season. Kaplan's talked about it, and other people on the team. So we're talking right now about the coin flip that happens in sudden death, and it only happens on certain maps, obviously. But in the future, next season, we shouldn't have any more coin flips, ideally, and they're working on that right now. They said they're working on it real hard. So this is kind of like a temporary thing, and this first season is shorter because we kind of started kind of in the middle of the summer season. So just keep in mind, the coin flip should disappear soon.
Yeah, they're going to be going to the time bank system across the board, and so that should hopefully alleviate the whole sudden death thing eventually. So definitely looking forward to that. Next on the list, they did have some bug fixes in the competitive play, basically regarding leaving matches. So previously, if you left and rejoined matches, you were able to give it a lot of time and still get back and get into the match and still play. So in competitive match at the moment, you're still able to leave and rejoin, and they were actually having a problem where even if you did rejoin the match and complete it, you're actually still receiving a penalty at the end of that completed. So they did fix that. But just a note, they did put it in there as well, a note that if you leave more than 3 times in competitive play, you will still receive a leave even if you complete the matches. So just trying to make sure that the leaver penalty is harsh enough and we don't have too many people just, trying to use that to their advantage, which is nice.
Yeah, I think a lot of players mistook this and didn't actually realize it was a bug and thought it was intended. But yeah, so if whether you just got DC'd from internet connection or whatever reason, you're able to go back in the competitive game as long as it's still going on. And before, you would receive a loss and a penalty no matter what the circumstance was. But now, if you win the game, you'll still get that win, and you won't get the penalty for leaving.
Yeah, as long as you're able to get back in with a lot of time, you will still receive the win as well. So, just a bug fix that they were able to catch and change. So, but just keep in mind, definitely don't want to be leaving too often. Again, 3 times or more, and you'll actually still receive a leave as well. So, next on the list, we do have some new information regarding the new hero, possibly Sombra, as many people have speculated in the past. We did actually find out July 21st coming up, the San Diego Comic-Con, there's actually going to be, it's already scheduled on the list for a Q&A session for the new hero, and there's actually a behind-the-scenes look at the creative process from the developers, from the art to the design, and including a new backstory for the hero. So leads us to believe that the new hero will come out soon, and probably sometime around that time we will get some more information. They did also kind of do a little teaser on Twitter, if you guys caught that, of the weapon that's possibly going to be for the new hero as well.
Right, yeah, so if you're following @PlayOverwatch on Twitter, you should have seen just a little info graphic, just a little image of a gun as a sniper that kind of has healing capabilities, and there's some dialogue between Torbjorn and Mercy about this new, weapon that they're making. But, yeah, very interesting. A lot, we've heard a lot about this maybe sniper healer and how it would work. So, obviously, there's still a lot of speculation to be had, but it's pretty much expected that Sombra is going to be the next hero added to the game. And sometime this month, maybe, a couple weeks, we'll, know a lot more about her.
Yeah, so definitely looking forward to that. As we've seen in some of the previous speculation that she appeared in the support role on the screen. So we're looking forward to having a new support. Definitely, I think could definitely use another support in the game right now.
Right, and last thing just to touch on really quick is a high bandwidth option. So pretty much, they've been getting a little bit more use on it. There's been improvements. Blizzard to come out a while ago and said no one's using this feature, but everyone's talking about tick rate and stuff. But from what I get out of it, they probably want to implement these higher, tick rates in the normal games and have other options with the servers. And yeah, did you have anything else to say about that?
Yeah, so they've been previously working on a lot of bug fixes, things that they know that need to be fixed for the infrastructure on it. It's still unstable as it is now. They're having issues with it, so they're definitely working hard at fixing that and trying to make it as stable as possible. But they just want to push the idea that they want as much feedback and as testing as possible. So if you guys have a chance, if you have a group of people that can get together and test it, or if you're able to just kind of devote some time to some feedback and testing for them, they need as much feedback as they can get. They're definitely looking at putting in a server browser. That's in the way later future that will make it easier for that. But they definitely want to explore, proliferating this high bandwidth option to the other parts of the game. So whatever that means for the later on in the future. But definitely we're interested in seeing it move into the other stages of the game. So definitely, if you guys have a chance, take a look at that. Give us some feedback. Give Blizzard some feedback. They're looking for as much as they can get.
Right, so let's move on to the competitive scene. Quite a lot to talk about here. Let's begin talking about some trends we've been seeing in the competitive scene, right? So we've seen a big U-turn when it regards to hero limits, right? So we kind of seen, multiple organizations kind of, Blizzard, they don't really have hero limits in the game, and they don't really seem, maybe it's the best idea. So, ESL, for example, and many other, tournament tournament organizers, they were going for the no hero limits, but it seems like all of a sudden, a big U-turn, and I watched 4 tournaments last week, and all of them had a hero limit. I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious to kind of see where Blizzard stands with it. They obviously kind of want to keep it open and not enforce the hero limits. And I think, honestly, on their end of things, it's a very good idea to keep it open because it allows organizers to kind of try both things out and see what they like and have other players as well test it out. So, I mean, it's available. Both options are there. You can have hero limits or not have it. But in the core of the game, Blizzard seems to think that having no hero limits is the best idea. And we talked about it a lot in the past, and I think we're of the mind that, whatever's best for the game is what's going to be best, and we just want it to be consistent. I know several other places reported that viewership for the game and for tournaments was down quite a bit when they were doing the no hero limits. A lot of people just don't like the cheese comps that come out of it. And again, talking about the overtime, extending the overtime, just using the whole all tracers or all divas and things like that to just kind of keep it up as long as possible. A lot of people don't really like watching that, and it could be very confusing to watch all these divas or Winstons on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing 7 tracers on the field at a time, and spectating that could be, a challenge for sure. But I think, the overwhelming majority of both spectators and even the pros, they are leaning much more towards the hero limit. And I must say, I'm probably leaning that way as well. I mean, the game's very early in its life cycle. The game's been out for like a whole month and a half or so. So now is definitely the time to be experimenting with all these different rules and formats. But all the shows or all the tournaments I've been seeing definitely been using the hero league or hero limit, even ones that previously weren't going to, like the ESL showdown, the Overwatch Cup, the Gosu weeklies that go on. Pretty much everything's they're going back to the hero limit.
Yeah, definitely. And it's easy to see why they want to do that. In the past, they've had a lot of success with actually getting some new heroes into the meta and kind of making some changes and just getting people to see things that they're not used to seeing, as well as kind of cutting down on the fat of having all these, the 2-2-2 cheese comps, with the Winstons and the Tracers and all that, and just making it a lot more fun to not only watch, but to spectate, or not spectate, but actually to commentate as well. So, I think I would lean that way a little bit more as well. Definitely on the tournament side. On the game itself, it's still kind of up in the air. I think obviously Blizzard is open to making changes, but I think they still like the no hero limits as well. And I think for the competitive, it works okay right now. I'm not seeing like a crazy amount of weird overtime extensions. Usually it's not that bad. So
yeah, I see it maybe being worse in the higher end games. You're just cheesing it because it's most effective. And that might take a little bit away from it. But, maybe in the fall season, they could apply a hero limit just to competitive, leave quick play where it is. And then they could have, a whole pool of players with no hero limit. Then you have the hero limit in a more competitive scene. And we just try it out. I think they could do that.
Yeah, I mean, they can definitely make changes. And that's another good example of why the seasons is really a good way to go. Is it's really easy for them to take a break, kind of take a look at, the statistics of what's been going on for last season, make a change here or there, and evaluate what happens when they change certain things.
All right, so something else we've been seeing lately is what we're calling timed completion, right? So it's a different way to score the competitive games, right? So pretty much all the tournaments are using the built-in competitive match system now, where you actually get a numerical score, right? So every single checkpoint gives you a point and so on. So these tournaments, they are using that, but when it comes to coin flips, if there is a tie, they're going to go back to the old stopwatch. That seems to be currently the best way to score the games.
Yeah, and we figured that would happen. A lot of the big tournaments we're talking about, using the actual competitive format, except for the sudden death. This is one of the things that, like we explained before, it's kind of an asymmetrical outcome to the game, having one team attack and the other team defend. It just, it seems kind of a little bit hard to play that out. So, yeah, they're definitely going back to the stopwatch. Not surprising. I mean, it's been working out pretty well so far. So I like the idea that they're making this change. So
right, so it's just a regular score format in competitive, what you'd be used to. But if there is a tie, it's pretty much whoever got the most recent objective sooner.
Right, so just like stopwatch, exactly. So yeah, it's just a much more effective way to judge things in the outcome. So
right, and other news: Gale Force Esports, they parted ways with their Overwatch team, which was formerly Code 7 before they picked him up. And what happened is Now they just went back to their old name, so they're Code 7 now.
Right. So they were together for about 2 months. It was a mutual decision. They both posted, Gale Force Esports and the Code 7 team posted that they just decided that their views weren't lined together and they just were looking to separate. So Gale Force is still going to be in Overwatch. They still want to compete at the high levels. They're still looking for a team at this moment. And Code 7 is still looking for a possible sponsor as well. So definitely good luck to both of them. Hopefully things work out for them, and we look forward to seeing more of both of them.
Yeah, and maybe some extra motivation because I believe I just saw them beat Cloud9 not too long ago.
Yeah, they were doing really good. So
they're trying to get that sponsorship,
Definitely. So it could be exciting. So definitely looking forward to more Code 7. So good luck to you guys. Hopefully you do well. Next up, we're talking about the Overwatch Cup. I think we mentioned it previously in the previous section, just talking about the competitive play formats. So that is it's actually going to be put on by Beyond the Summit. It's a LA-based organizing and producing tournament organizer. So they're known a lot for their Dota 2. They've been around for quite a while. The Overwatch Cup is going to be the top North American teams. It's an invite, and you guys can check that out. If you don't know where to go, you can check it out as twitch.tv/Beyond the Summit. They're the ones that are going to be hosting it. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, so people familiar with Dota 2 or the competitive scene probably know Beyond the Summit. They're involved, with the big international tournaments and so. But yeah, they just had their very first Overwatch tournament. It's the Overwatch Cup. So they had, and they're currently playing the games right now as we're recording. Their very first cup, and they're going to have another cup coming up on on the 23rd and 24th this month, and then the next month they'll have it on the 6th and 7th, the final cup. So yeah, pretty good prize pool, $9,999.
Yeah,
all the big teams you would expect.
Yeah, definitely going to be a great competition. I mean, from what we've seen so far, all the big names are there, and they're competing pretty well. So, again, good luck to all you guys, and hopefully some great games come out of that. So definitely looking forward to that.
There were some great games, and it does seem like they brought some of their expertise, from being in the industry for so long. They're based right here in Los Angeles near us. But I did notice a really good, just casting and just general, having, for example, like the ladder up on the screen and everyone can see, like, it's not just links like, oh, check out this ladder over here on a wiki page or something, right? So they actually show it's very clear, like, oh, okay, this is, round 2. This is going to be best of 3. Here's what the ladder looks like. And it was nice. It was clean. And
so laid out really well, presented well, very easy to follow. It's not all over the place. It seems like they really got their stuff together.
Yeah, and we could always welcome even more tournaments. There's so many tournaments, and we've been entertaining the idea of maybe having a dedicated show just for this crazy esports thing, because there's just so much you can't really go into very much detail, just barely skim the surface there. Yeah,
obviously the more tournaments the better, whether they're well organized or just kind of funded by a few people or whatnot, but definitely more tournaments the better. Awesome to always watch and see some high rate play. So
yeah, and I just want to mention real quick before we get into strategy that I was watching the Beat Invitational, and Energy Red, which is Northern Gaming Red, they picked up a new player. His name's Bird. Really good player. I just want to shout out if anyone's looking for like really good Widow play. Not that much Widow play since she got nerfed a little bit, but some great games, specifically versus Envious. They actually took a game against Envious, which is a pretty good team. Ranked 1 in the world.
Yeah,
right.
Envious
So the very first match, the Energy Red took a match, and Bird was playing some really great Widow, and I just wanted to talk about how character swapping could change the dynamic of the game completely, especially with something like Widow.
Yeah, Widow's a really good example. She just changes the layout of the map so much because of the fact that she has such a long range, and because she's so lethal at that long range, that she just makes the whole game change. You really have to watch out for her, especially with characters like Pharah and such, who are used to just being able to be out there, especially since the changes to Widowmaker are not seen too many of them, just be out there and kind of do their own thing and not have to worry about it. But yeah, Widowmaker is definitely a deadly character still. She can still really put up some good competition, and especially when somebody who really knows how to play her is playing her.
Yeah, so a big shout out to Bird. Check him out. I'm Shiki Chavads. Multiple times, just killing 1, 2, 3, just down, just winning those fights. And yeah, it's just to me, it's just interesting to see the dynamic of the game change because you see, Pharah just flying around. You got a Mercy training her and everything. Everything's well. Then all of a sudden you can't do that. And something I've noticed probably in competitive, where I play a lot of Mercy and I know, okay, that person's a good Widow. I have to play differently now. I can't risk sticking my head out for a second, right?
Right, and that's the thing is it's not just the actual effect that Widow has, but it's just the fear of the threat of her, even if she's not the greatest Widowmaker in the world. If you don't know, if you're going into a competitive match and you've never met this Widow before, you've never played against them, just that threat, having that threat there makes it a lot more difficult for people like Widowmaker, or for other Widowmakers and snipers and Pharahs and such. So,
but yeah, it's kind of nice to see that counter Widowmaker pick because that's one way to counter her is.
Yeah, and so many people were complaining beforehand that she was just so dominant and she was so volatile to the game. But I love seeing great Widowmaker play, so I'll definitely check it out. Definitely looking forward to seeing that.
All right, so let's change gears now into strategy. Our strategy today is all about Roadhog. He's your favorite tank with 600 health. Got a big belly. He likes pigs.
He's somewhat similar to myself. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, he's definitely one of my favorite tanks, especially on defensive. I run him on offense a little bit, probably a little bit more Reinhardt on offense, but I definitely love Roadhog on defense because the team has to really walk right into your hook. So you're really able to kind of pick your battles with him. So for sure.
All right, so let's talk about the basics at first. His weapon is called a scrap gun. He does have a primary and alternate fire, which is default PC, left and right click. I'll talk about his left click. It's pretty much just a little scrap gun blast. It's a short range blast. He has 4 ammo in his shotgun. It's kind of like a shotgun. It does a maximum of 225 damage. That's assuming that all the little pellets and bits hit, which is very rare. There's a big spread on it, but does a lot of damage. I mean, I see people one shot all the time. Tracer or Reaper, anybody get up close, man, you could just tear them up.
Yeah, it's that real close up damage. It's really reliable. It has a big spread, so it's going to hit you probably regardless of how good your aim is. But yeah, you really want to land it real close up, get that max damage out of it. So next up is his alt fire. So again, it's a scrap gun, but it's actually like an actual ball. So it's actually a projectile ball that he shoots out, and then it'll actually spread at the end. So again, use 4 ammo. And again, it's a 225 max damage. That's if everything hits the enemy. And he does have his reload. It takes a little bit of a second, so 1.5 second reload. So it's one thing to note with him. His reload's a little bit slower than most characters, so you really got to be careful. He's only got 4 ammo, and then you have to reload. So I can't tell you how many times in the beginning I've seen people use his hook and they don't have any ammo, or they have to reload, and it's just that's game breaking right there because it takes too long to reload.
Yeah. So one of the most important things to learn on Roadhog when you're first learning is there's a certain range that you want to know what you left click or right click, right? So right click is going to be for your further range targets. It's about 20 feet and it's visually, clear. If you right click, you shoot out a ball, then after about 20 feet, it does disperse. So the way it works is if anyone's ever within that 20 feet, you always left click. If they're outside that, then you always right click. And if you do right click and you hit someone before the ball even opens, it only does like 50 damage. So you're much better off doing a potential 225 with the left click, obviously. Huge spread. You're not normally doing 225 damage, right? But that's pretty much just knowing exactly, what that 20 feet, give or take, looks like. And, pulling that trigger perfectly when, it opens right in front of their face and then it just one-shots them.
Right. So, yeah, definitely learning his range is going to be key to learning how to play Roadhog very well. So... next up is his chain hook. It's definitely the most devastating ability in his toolkit. It really allows you to get in there and really just pluck people out of the battlefield and just really take them out. So it's really one of the abilities that you want to pay attention to the most. It has a huge range. It's a 21 meter range. Of course, it always feels so much longer when you're on the offensive side or on the ending of that hook. But the hook only does about 30 damage. It does have a 6-second cooldown, but the hook does actually stun and interrupt. So we'll definitely be talking a lot about that later on with him. It's such a volatile ability and really changes a lot of things on the battlefield when you get that hook.
Right. So the chain hook does do a little minor stun on the person it hits. It does stun yourself as well, so you're not able to do any actions within that certain amount of time. It's less than a second, very short. But it's one of those abilities in a game where you play differently depending on whether that Roadhog has a chain or not. You engage or not engage, with that information. It's one of those, such a significant ability where, okay, I just heard that chain, now I can engage safely. It's that big of a deal.
Yeah, especially on someone like myself who plays a lot of Genji. If you play against a Roadhog, there's definitely one thing you always want to keep an eye on, because it depends on how he's playing, but he can use that hook and you can either dodge it or reflect it. I always love to make sure that I have my reflect up if I want to get in close to him, because I can set that reflect up and just get him to try and hook me with the reflect, and then it just will stop the hook. But also he can use that to his advantage, because if you are the Roadhog, you can bait them into using that reflect, and then now he no longer has that reflect up as well. So.
Right, let's talk about his Take a Breather, which is default E on the PC. It lasts for about 2 seconds. It has an 8-second cooldown. What it does is it heals you for 300 health. And because he doesn't have a shield, most tanks like Reinhardt or Winston, they have big old shields. D.Va has a Matrix. So his ability to sustain himself is through Take a Breather, which apparently he doesn't know what he's inhaling. Even he doesn't know it's magical,
right. Magical
air.
fairy dust, whatever it is that he's inhaling. It does a good job, though. 300 health, so it's half your health pool. Big heal. One thing to keep in mind with that definitely is, again, it does kind of leave you vulnerable. You're not able to move for that duration while you're healing. So definitely you probably want to get out of the way and not be in line of sight or be vulnerable while you're using that ability.
Correct, yeah, because some abilities in the game, you could cut the animation short or so, but with Take a Breather, you certainly are vulnerable. You're not able to do any actions. But what I find myself doing a lot is like jumping like behind a corner, or just jumping off things. You can still like be in the air, moving while you're doing it. It's helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I always try to make sure I'm out of the way when I'm using it, for sure. Another thing to keep in mind is the hook you can actually hook another Roadhog who's actually using the E, and it will actually stop the heal. It's one of the only ways to really stop him from healing. So definitely good to use, as it does have an 8-second cooldown. You can really kind of play around that. So once you see him taking a breather, you can hook him, then he can't do it for a good second.
Yeah, it's important to notice that, it is interruptible. So, McCree stun or things that normally interrupt will interrupt that as well. So let's talk about his ultimate. It's called Whole Hog. I'm sure you've seen this ability. It lasts for 6 seconds. He just puts like a feeder on top of his gun. And just, tons of damage. It is not able to headshot. Important to note,
Yeah,
a lot of people won't realize that. But yeah, man, it's pretty devastating. Gotta get those environmental kills.
Yeah, you don't need a headshot. It does so much damage. It's a 6-second duration, upwards 2,500 damage if you're landing all of it. Of course, you're probably not going to land anywhere near all of it, but and it does a huge pushback. So you're really able to push people off of things, and like you said, get those environmental kills, which are really nice.
Yeah, environmental kills are very nice because they cannot be res by Mercy, which is pretty big deal.
Yeah, especially in the way things are stacking up right now with a lot of Mercies. So it's definitely good to keep in mind if you can get an environmental kill. It's definitely an advantage. So,
and you're probably not aiming for the head too much anyways, because the spread's pretty huge. So it does a maximum of 2,500 damage if you're just like sitting on somebody and every single pellet managed to find a body to hit. But it's just don't aim for the head. It doesn't do you much good. You're pretty much using it for the knockback. And
yeah, it's a great ability for pushing people back, even if you can't knock somebody off an edge. If they're funneling down one portion of the map, you can actually just push them back. You can take down Reinhardt shields pretty effectively with it. You just really provides so many different ways to use it.
Yeah, and just something that came to mind is you're able to push back a charging Reinhardt. It's that powerful that you could keep a charging Reinhardt at bay. And it's really interesting to see him charging someone, actually have a body on him, and he's getting hit by a whole hog.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is really funny. I think the first time I used to play a lot of Winston. Haven't played him as much lately, but I was not aware of this ability when I very first started playing the game, and somebody actually used this whole hog, and you just literally keep somebody up in the corner of a room and keep the Winston even back from you attack. It's just ridiculous the way you can keep people up in the air with it. So a lot of ways to use it, definitely, for sure.
All right, so now that we know his whole kit, let's talk a little bit about playing him, little tips and tricks and stuff. So first, let's talk about how We'll start off with the downside of Roadhog, right? I mean, he is really popular right now. He's certainly in the meta a lot. But one thing to note is that when you pick him, you are a large hitbox and you are a tank, but you don't have the shields to go behind. So you're kind of feeding an ult charge to your enemy team. It's just kind of a trade-off with playing Roadhog.
Yeah, and you don't have a huge amount of mobility with him. There's no movement abilities with him. I mean, you have your hook, but I mean, you're really feeding the enemy team if you're just standing out there and you're not really doing much. So definitely, he has a lot of upsides, but just one thing to keep in mind.
Right, so you just don't want to take unnecessary damage. Just like if you're playing Reinhardt, you don't want to have your shield be taking unnecessary damage, unless you're actually achieving something with that ground or something you're moving.
Yeah, I've seen so many people using that Reinhardt shield, just having it up. They're not even poking around the corner. The shield's just sticking out and just taking damage for no reason. So
let's talk about the obvious thing, the hook combo, which a lot of people I'm sure are very familiar with. It's probably happened to them on a daily basis, but fundamentally it's real simple. The little hook combo goes something like you hook them first, and then you're unable to... You have a short stun, right? So you're stunning your enemy, but there's a short time that you're stunned as well, meaning you just can't do any actions. And typically what you would be doing is right after you hook, you just hold down your primary fire, and you're aiming at their head. Obviously, it should be coming right up and close, unless there is sometimes it gets obstructed by the environments and stuff. Sometimes you get crazy hooks, okay, but usually you hook them, you're holding down your primary attack, which is your left click, aiming at their head, and you're also holding W and ready for a melee. So it's kind of like a little combo, right? So you hook them, primary fire, and usually you run forward and melee. You run forward because, if they back up a little bit, just make sure you're in range.
Right. So just a hook, your primary fire, left mouse, and then your melee, all followed up one right after another. So hook, left mouse, and melee, and pretty much one-shots anybody.
It's pretty much, unless they're a tank, it's going to kill them. Obviously, some people have vulnerabilities, like Reaper's probably the most common. So it's kind of like one of those things where, you saw him, Wraith form, so now you could hook him and you can't Wraith form out. Right. But you're still going to displace them. But another thing I want to point out is, especially against like tanks, or maybe they have like a Lucio shield or some extra health, what you can do is fire either left or right click depending on the range, right? So when you're playing Roadhog, you're constantly analyzing, okay, is my target close to me to left click or further away to right click, right? And you also want to force those encounters on, so if you see the Reinhardt come out, you're specifically positioning yourself so when you right click, 100% of the damage is being done to the Reinhardt shield, because the Roadhog could take down a Reinhardt shield in a very small amount of time, seconds, just by himself, not even counting.
Yeah, it's one of the things I always prioritize in the very beginning of a fight, because it can really make a huge difference to take that Reinhardt shield down and allow you guys to take the fight to them on the defensive side of things.
But yeah, what I was getting at is, so you could do the normal combo, right? But what you can do is just fire first and then do the combo, right? So for example, if you see a Winston, maybe he's ulted. I mean, he has a lot of health, right? He's not going to die straight up from a hook combo. So what you can do is just right click and then begin the combo with the hook right after, and that hook will interrupt the
animation.
The animation, right? Yeah. So you could fire and then hook simultaneously, pretty much, and it helps a lot. It helps a lot because you could the rate of fire is pretty slow with Roadhog. You only have 4, trigger pulls. It's pretty slow, but yeah, you could typically you see like a Winston, a Pharah, you could right click and then hook him immediately at the same time. And then do your little combo. Then he'll be dead.
Yeah, so it's definitely good to use it because it does kind of interrupt that animation. It also will catch them off guard. So you're able to right-click, hook them immediately, and by the time they realize what's happening, it's kind of over. So
something maybe a little bit more obvious, but your hook ability is able to interrupt and counter a lot of abilities in the game. A lot of ultimates. Some that come to mind is Reaper ultimates, a Pharah ultimates, a High Noon from a McCree. You can just hook them right out of that, and it feels pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I can't tell you, especially on a lot of Pharahs. Right now, there's just so many Pharahs all over competitive play, and whenever they're ulting, it's so awesome to be able to stop that and then take them down instantly. So
my favorite thing to interrupt is a Reinhardt charging. Like I've literally had Reinhardts complain oh man, it shouldn't work like that. I was charging someone, you just hook them. But yeah, you can just hook them, and it's very obvious to aim your hook because it's very constant speed.
And a constant speed and constant direction. I mean, one of the things is it's interesting because if they're charging to you, even you can interrupt it. But really funny, I had one the other day. It was really funny that they were charging away at one of my friendlies, and I actually hooked them. So they were charging, they were already charging out, and the hook came out behind him, so he's moving in that direction. The hook finally lands and it pulls him back in the other direction. Is just so satisfying. So yeah, definitely the best thing to interrupt for sure.
Right. So also when you're playing Roadhog, you're always looking out for those environmental deaths. We mentioned, just a minute ago that environmental deaths are even better than regular deaths because they can't be res, for example, from a Mercy. They're completely taken out of the game. And Roadhog has multiple ways to get these environmental deaths, right? So his ultimate we talked a little bit about. It has a pretty big knockback, and you're able to knock people off. I mean, you just position yourself accordingly, and just know what maps, like the Guard and Legion Tower, for example. Nepal has a map in the center. And it could do some devastating damage. One thing we probably didn't mention was Genji. You gotta watch out for the reflect when you're ulting, right? So if you are getting knocked back from your own ultimate, just turn away, aim at someone else if you can. But that's not helpful if you're just pushing yourself back.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, I'm sure there's other targets to aim at, or it's better not. It's just rather waste it than to pump it up and hit yourself. So, yeah, I mean, obviously I play a lot of Genji, so I love doing that. It's satisfying to knock that back at the other Roadhogs. But yeah, definitely don't just face into his reflect. It's just like any other ability, 76 or anybody else. You just no reason to be aiming at the reflect for sure.
Right, so obviously your ultimate can knock back people, but even easier and easier to actually pull off is get environmental deaths with your hook. Obviously the well comes to mind. Just being able to position yourself to where there's any kind of void space between you and enemy hit, and you don't even have to do your combo. I mean, I always do still, because maybe it's a Pharah or a Lucio that could possibly save themselves. But just position. I mean, this probably happened to most people who played the game, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it happen quite a few times. I'm sure it's happened to me quite a few times. I actually had one, not where I've been hooked, but I'm not sure what it was, but something knocked me off, and I was actually playing Lucio, and I don't play too much Lucio, especially then. I think it was like one of my first times playing Lucio, and of course I was aware of the wall riding, but I never really used it, so I had no idea how to do it. But I actually saved myself on the Nepal map as well, so definitely awesome. I love getting those wall rides into. But so yeah, you definitely want to pay attention to who you're hooking and what you're using to try and get those environmental deaths.
Right, and I don't know. I don't think we talked about it, but you do want to be aware of shields because they can block your hook, right? So the obvious ones would be a Zarya shield on herself or someone else, a Reinhardt shield, Winston shield. You will not be able to hook people if they have a shield.
Right. So, and again, the Genji reflect as well can stop the hook. So just keep in mind who you're hooking. Pay attention, if they have it up. Reinhardt's the most obvious one. A lot of times I'll try and flank with Roadhog, and if you can get to the side or behind Reinhardt just enough, even if his shield is up, if you can hit him from the side or behind, you can actually still hook him, and then that just takes his shield down. Why is that it? So yeah, definitely keep in mind when you're going up against Reinhardt's.
Yeah, I think Zarya is probably the biggest downer when it comes to hooking people, because she can shield herself or allies, and a lot of times it's after the fact. If I'm playing a Zarya, I'm letting someone get hooked, and then I shield them. Then I have tons of power. I instantly have 50 power on Zarya. I'm lit up, like a Christmas tree, and I'm going to town. And I saved my person,
Yeah, and that's the most devastating part is that if there's a Zarya on the field, you got to be worried about anybody. So, you just definitely be careful about that. I mean, it's nice. She does have a slight window between when she's using her shields and barriers on herself or her friendlies. So if you can get it after she's used the shields or barriers, then you're in the clear. But
right. So one other tip I could think of with Roadhog, a lot of people don't do this. I see because Mercy's my number one play character, right? So I see these things a little bit more often. But if you're playing Roadhog, and let's say you're just poking, right? You're on the point, and they're pushing you, just doing a little back and forth. Instead of going back lines and actually using your take a breather, you could let your healers heal you for their ultimate charge, right? So you pretty much are always on a lookout for them. And obviously, it's kind of hard with pugs. They might not be very reliable or dependable, but typically if your Mercy could just heal the damage received from the enemy, it's much better than using a cooldown, and they get a pretty big chunk of ultimate charge, so they could res you.
Yeah, so I always kind of play around. I mean, the take a breather, it's only 8-second cooldown. I mean, it's a longer cooldown, but it's manageable. With 600 health, if you're just missing a little bit of health, I might let it sit for a minute if I'm not in danger before I use it. But yeah, again, just time and time I've seen it. This is very unreliable with pugs, so you definitely got to watch out. I say, try and figure it out in the early minutes of the game. Try to, take a little bit of damage and see, is your healer actually going to pay attention and heal you? And then you kind of know from then on when you need to be able to take care of yourself, or if you can kind of let your healer do that for you. But yeah, I mean, time and time again, I'm having to use it because healer's not that reliable. But yeah,
and this is usually when it's safe. Obviously, I mean, if you're using take a breather, you're already vulnerable to begin with. But yes, we're not talking about you're in the heat of battle and all of a sudden, I'm not going to bother healing myself. I could. No, I mean, you should definitely, use your abilities to potential.
Oh, yeah.
But
I'm not talking about that.
Usually,
but yeah.
when I see it happen, it's usually you're just poking, you're just defending point B on, some capture point map or something. And you're just doing a little bit of poke. One team's trying to get a pick so they could, engage. And same thing goes with any character, really, with health packs, right? So if Mercy's standing right next to you, the Mercy could get ultimate charge by healing you, and, depends on positioning, but that Mercy could probably use that health pack on the next push, to heal herself because she can't heal herself.
Yeah, and not only that, she would need it immediately. A lot of times when the flankers get in the back line, she needs that health pack to stay alive, whereas she can heal her friendlies. So, yeah, I mean, it's just another thing to keep in mind for sure. One thing, always try and stress is protect your healers. They're such a big part of the game, and they make such a difference when they're around. I mean, if they're not around, it doesn't make much difference if you have a full ultimate charge to res the whole team if you just die. So
yeah, and it goes without saying for any character, but being able to pick your opponents and which characters you should be going after. If you could hook a support character, I mean, some characters you get much more value from, So being able to prioritize your targets.
Yeah, you prioritize, your targets, who you want to take out of the game. Obviously, each game you should be sizing up your opponent and seeing who's the one that's carrying this team, who do I want to take out? And sometimes it is the healer, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's just the Reaper who's just destroying everybody. But yeah, definitely healers are always important, especially if you're looking to do a big team battle and to take a big leap in that direction. You want to make sure you take out the healer first and just score those kills on the enemy and make sure they can't be just brought back real easy from a Mercy res, as well as, again, assessing threats. If somebody's using their ult or if they have their ult, take them out of the picture. That's one of the great things about Roadhog that I love is you can just literally pluck people out of the battlefield and take them out. So tracers, if there's those annoying tracers, if you can get a hook on them, it's pretty much game. So.
All right, so that pretty much covers our Roadhog discussion. Next week, we're going to be covering Pharah. She's really popular right now.
Yeah, we thought this would be a great time to talk about her. She's really high up in the meta right now. Everybody's playing her. She's just really just doing amazing right now. She's just doing so much for her team. So, again, as a result of, maybe some of the changes to Widowmaker. So that'll do it for this week's character discussion, and I think that's going to do it for our show. So, again, thank you guys for listening. Check us out next week. We'll have a new show again. Again, any kind of messages you guys want to send us, any feedback or anything, definitely send us a message.
Right, so we love hearing feedback. Thank you so much to all the people who have reached out to us. You could contact us at our email, aheroeswelcomepodcast@gmail.com, and we're also on Twitter, which is at 2 Moon Studios. Both of those will be in the
show notes at the bottom.
Show notes, wherever you get that. And that's going to do it for us. Until next time.
Next time.